I never thought much about loggers before Marcus. In my mind, they were just guys who cut down trees for a living, flannel-wearing outdoorsmen who probably spent their weekends fishing and drinking beer. I worked in marketing for a sustainable forestry company, which meant I spent my days in climate-controlled offices, creating PowerPoint presentations about responsible timber harvesting while drinking overpriced lattes. My world was spreadsheets and quarterly reports. His world was chainsaws and 200-foot trees. We shouldn't have had anything in common. The first time I saw him was during a site visit I was forced to take. My boss wanted authentic photos for a campaign, so there I was, standing in the middle of a logging operation in my khakis and button-down shirt, completely out of place. The other guys on the crew kept giving me looks, not hostile exactly, just aware that I didn't belong. But Marcus, he just nodded at me once and went back to work. He was this tall, broad-shouldered guy with a thick, dark beard and arms that looked like they could snap a tree trunk in half. He moved through that forest like he was part of it, completely at ease in a way I'd never been anywhere. I was trying to get a good angle for a photo when I stepped backward onto a log I didn't see. My foot rolled. The log shifted. And suddenly I was falling. I remember the sky wheeling above me, my arms flailing uselessly, and the certain knowledge that I was about to hit the ground hard. Then I wasn't falling anymore. Marcus had me. One arm around my back, one under my legs, like I weighed absolutely nothing. He'd crossed maybe 15 feet in the time it took me to fall, moving faster than seemed possible for someone his size. For a second, we just looked at each other. His eyes were this deep brown, almost black, and there were little flecks of sawdust caught in his beard. He smelled like pine and sweat and something else I couldn't identify, something earthy and real. My heart was hammering, and I told myself it was from the fall, from the adrenaline. That was easier than admitting the truth. "You okay?" His voice was deeper than I expected, rough around the edges. Yes, thank you." I was very aware of his arms around me, of how easily he held me. I'm not a small guy, I'm 5'10" and average build, but he held me like I was made of air. He set me down carefully, his hands steadying me for a moment longer than necessary. "Gotta watch your step out here. It's not an office." There was no judgment in his voice, just a statement of fact. But I felt my face heat up anyway. "Right. I'll be more careful." He nodded and walked back to his work, and I stood there feeling stupid and strangely bereft, like something important had just happened, and I didn't know what to do with it. That should have been the end of it. One embarrassing moment I could laugh about later. But my boss loved the photos from that day and decided we needed more content showing the human side of logging, which meant I was back at the site the following week, and the week after that. Each time I found myself watching Marcus, the way he moved, the easy strength in everything he did, the quiet competence. He didn't waste words or motion. Everything he did had purpose. The other guys on the crew were friendly enough, joking around and giving me tips on where to stand so I wouldn't get killed by falling timber. But Marcus stayed apart, focused on his work. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me, but he'd always look away quickly, his expression unreadable. On my fourth visit, it rained. Not a light drizzle, but a proper downpour that turned the logging road into a mud pit and made everything slick and dangerous. My boss told me to come back another day, but I was already there, and Marcus's crew was still working. They had a deadline to meet, rain or no rain. I took shelter under a tarp they'd strung up near their equipment, trying to protect my camera. Marcus came over during a break, his clothes soaked through, water dripping from his beard. He grabbed a thermos from a cooler and poured himself coffee. "You don't have to stay," he said. "We'll be out here for hours." "I don't mind. I mean, if I'm not in the way." He studied me for a moment, then poured a second cup of coffee and handed it to me. "You're not in the way." We stood there drinking coffee in silence, watching the rain. It should have been awkward, but it wasn't. There was something peaceful about it, standing next to him while the forest dripped and steamed around us. "Why'd you become a logger?" I asked eventually. He was quiet for so long I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he said, "My dad was one. His dad before him. Guess it's in my blood. Besides, I'm good at it." He paused. "Why'd you become a marketing guy?" I laughed. "Because I was good at writing and bad at everything else. Seemed like the safe choice." "You like it?" No one had ever asked me that before. My family was proud I had a good corporate job. My friends were impressed by my salary and benefits. But did I like it? Sometimes. It pays well. It's stable. That's not what I asked. I looked at him, and he was watching me with those dark eyes, really watching, like he could see past all the bullshit I usually hid behind. "No," I admitted. "Not really. But it's fine. It's a good job." He just nodded, like that made sense to him. And we went back to drinking our coffee in silence. After that, something shifted between us. Marcus started talking to me more, explaining what they were doing and why, showing me the difference between a good cut and a bad one, teaching me to read the forest the way he did. I started looking forward to my site visits in a way that had nothing to do with work. I'd find myself thinking about him at odd moments, remembering the way he'd laugh at something one of his crew said, or the careful way he'd examine a tree before deciding where to cut. I told myself we were becoming friends. That's all it was. I'd had crushes on guys before, brief and quickly suppressed, nothing serious. I'd dated women, had a girlfriend in college, another one after. It hadn't worked out, but I'd told myself that was just bad timing, incompatibility, the usual reasons relationships fail. I didn't let myself think too hard about why I'd never felt about them the way I was starting to feel about Marcus. One evening, after his crew had packed up for the day, I was still there, trying to get some sunset photos. Marcus came over, cleaned up and changed into fresh clothes, his hair still damp from a shower. "You need a ride back to town?" he asked. "Your car's not going to make it through that mud." He was right. My sedan was already struggling, and the logging road was only getting worse. "If you don't mind. I can call someone if it's out of your way. I'm heading that direction anyway." His truck was exactly what I expected, a big Ford with mud on the tires and a chainsaw in the back. The cab smelled like coffee and pine. We drove in comfortable silence for a while, the forest passing by in the fading light. "Can I ask you something?" I said eventually. "Sure." "Do you ever get tired of it? The same work, day after day?" He thought about it. "Sometimes. But then I'll be out there, and the light will hit the trees just right. Or I'll see an elk moving through the timber, and I remember why I do it. It's not just cutting down trees. It's being part of something bigger." He glanced at me. "You ever feel that way about your work?" "No," I said honestly. "I sit in meetings and write copy about sustainability, but I'm not actually part of it. I'm just describing it. Maybe you're in the wrong job." "Maybe. But it's not that easy to just change everything." "No," he agreed. "It's not." We were getting close to town when he pulled off onto a side road. "Want to see something?" he asked. "Okay." He drove us up to a viewpoint I didn't know existed, a clearing that looked out over the valley. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange, and you could see for miles. The forest stretched out below us, endless and beautiful. "I come here sometimes," Marcus said, "when I need to think." We got out of the truck and stood at the edge of the clearing. The air was cool and smelled like evening, like growing things and earth. "It's beautiful," I said. "Yeah." But when I looked over, he was watching me, not the view. My heart started doing that thing again, that hammering thing that made it hard to breathe. We were standing close, closer than friends usually stand, and I could feel the warmth coming off him. I wanted to say something, do something, but I was frozen, terrified of what it might mean. Marcus reached out slowly, giving me time to move away if I wanted to. His hand touched my face, his thumb brushing my cheek, and I stopped breathing entirely. "Tell me if I'm reading this wrong," he said quietly. I couldn't speak. I just shook my head, meaning no, you're not wrong. You're exactly right. But I couldn't make the words come out. He leaned in, and I met him halfway, and then we were kissing. His beard was soft against my face, his lips gentle. Asking a question I answered by pressing closer. His arms came around me, pulling me against him, and I felt that same strength that had caught me when I fell. But tender now, careful, like I was something precious. When we finally broke apart, I was shaking. I started, then stopped. I mean, I've thought about it, but I've never actually. "It's okay," he said. "We don't have to do anything you're not ready for." "I'm ready," I said, and I meant it. "I'm terrified, but I'm ready." He smiled, really smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "Me too, on both counts." "You're scared?" "Of course I am. You're this city guy with your fancy job and your education. What do I have to offer you?" I laughed, slightly hysterical. "Are you kidding? You're the most competent person I've ever met. You're strong and kind, and you actually do something real with your life. I'm the one who's just faking it." "You're not faking anything," he said. "You're just figuring things out. We both are." We stood there holding each other while the sun finished setting, and I felt something inside me settle into place, like a piece of a puzzle I hadn't known was missing. The next few weeks were the strangest and best of my life. We started seeing each other, really seeing each other, not just during my work visits, but on weekends and evenings. He showed me his world, took me hiking through old growth forest, taught me to identify trees by their bark and leaves. We'd sit by his campfire and talk for hours, about everything and nothing. He told me about growing up in a logging family, about the accident that killed his father, about learning to find beauty in dangerous work. I told him about my family's expectations, about feeling like I was living someone else's life, about being too scared to admit what I really wanted. "What do you really want?" he asked one night. We were at his cabin, a small place he'd built himself on 10 acres outside town. It was rough and simple, but it was his, completely and entirely. "This," I said. "You. A life that feels real." He pulled me closer. "You've got me. The rest we can figure out." But figuring it out was harder than I expected. My co-workers started noticing I was distracted. My boss commented on my improved photos, but questioned why I was spending so much time at the logging sites. I made excuses, said I was really getting into the project, but I could tell he was skeptical. And then there was my family. I hadn't told them about Marcus, hadn't told them anything. My mom kept asking if I was dating anyone, hinting that my ex-girlfriend Sarah was still single. My dad wanted to know about my career trajectory, when I was going to move up to senior management. The weight of their expectations felt heavier every day. "You're going to have to tell them eventually," Marcus said. We were lying in his bed, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Outside, rain pattered on the roof. "I know. I'm just not ready yet." "That's okay. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." but I could hear the hurt in his voice, the fear that maybe I was ashamed of him, of us. And maybe part of me was, not of him, but of what being with him meant. What it said about me, about all the years I'd spent pretending to be someone I wasn't. The crisis came on a Tuesday. My boss called me into his office and told me the logging campaign was wrapping up, that I'd done great work, but it was time to move on to other projects. No more site visits, no more legitimate reason to see Marcus during work hours. I sat in my car in the parking lot and felt panic rising in my chest. Without work as an excuse, I'd have to make a choice. Keep seeing Marcus and risk everything, my job, my family's approval, the safe, comfortable life I'd built. Or end it. Go back to pretending. Find a nice woman and try again to be the person everyone expected me to be. I drove to the logging site without thinking about it, just needing to see him. His crew was finishing up for the day, loading equipment onto trucks. Marcus saw me and came over, concern on his face. "What's wrong? Can we go somewhere? I need to talk to you." We drove to his cabin in silence. Inside, I paced back and forth while he waited patiently. "They're ending the campaign," I said finally. "No more site visits." "Okay, so we see each other on our own time. We've been doing that anyway." "It's not that simple. People are going to start asking questions. My family, my co-workers. They're going to want to know why I'm spending all my time out here, who I'm seeing. And you don't want to tell them." It wasn't a question. I do. I want to. But I'm scared. My parents, they're traditional, conservative. They're going to be so disappointed. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I can't make this decision for you. You have to figure out what you can live with. But I need you to know something. I love you. I'm in love with you. And I'm not going to hide it. I've spent too much of my life being invisible, being the quiet guy nobody notices. I'm done with that. I love you too," I said, and it was the first time I'd said it out loud, to him or to anyone. I'm just so scared of losing everything. "You won't lose me," he said, "but you might lose yourself if you keep pretending." He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing it and doing something about it were two different things. I went home that night and sat in my apartment, staring at my phone. I could call my parents, tell them everything. I could go to work tomorrow and be honest about my relationship. Or I could let Marcus go, retreat back into the comfortable lie of my old life. I thought about the way he'd caught me when I fell, how safe I'd felt in his arms. I thought about standing at that viewpoint watching the sunset, about lying in his bed listening to rain on the roof, about every moment of honesty and connection we'd shared. And I thought about going back to a life without that, a life of pretending and hiding and never quite feeling real. I picked up my phone and called my mum. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. "Honey, it's late. Is everything okay?" "Mum, I need to tell you something. I'm seeing someone. His name is Marcus, and I love him." There was a long silence. Then, "His name is Marcus?" "Yes." Another silence, longer this time. I could hear my dad's voice in the background asking what was wrong. Then my mum said, "I think you should come home this weekend. We need to talk about this." It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. It was a start. The conversation that weekend was hard. My dad didn't understand. Said he'd always thought I'd grow out of this phase. My mom cried, but I held my ground. I told them about Marcus, about how he made me feel, about how I couldn't keep living a lie. And slowly, painfully, they started to listen. I just want you to be happy, my mum said finally. I don't understand this, but I want you to be happy. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Coming out at work was easier. My boss was surprised, but professional. A few co-workers were weird about it, but most didn't care. And the relief of not hiding anymore, of being able to talk about my boyfriend like everyone else talked about their partners, was immense. Marcus was waiting when I got back from that first difficult weekend with my parents. I walked into his cabin and just held him, breathing in the pine and earth smell of him. "How'd it go?" he asked. "It was hard, but I did it. I told them." He pulled back to look at me, and there were tears in his eyes. "I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of me too," I said, and I meant it. That was 6 months ago. Things aren't perfect. My dad still doesn't really get it, and some of my extended family won't talk to me anymore. But my mum has started asking about Marcus, wanting to know about his life, his work. She's trying, and that means everything. I'm still working in marketing, but I've started taking classes in forestry management. Maybe I'll change careers, maybe I won't. But I'm exploring options, figuring out what I actually want instead of what I think I should want. And Marcus and I are building something real together. We're taking it slow, figuring out how to blend our different worlds. He's teaching me about the forest, and I'm teaching him about things like quarterly reports and marketing strategies. We laugh about how different we are, but we're learning that different doesn't mean incompatible. Last week, we went back to that viewpoint where he first kissed me. The sun was setting again, painting everything gold, and he pulled me close. "You know what I think about sometimes," he said. "That first day, when you fell, when I caught you. I think about how you trusted me to hold you, even though you didn't know me. You just let yourself fall, knowing I'd be there." "I didn't have much choice," I said, smiling. "Gravity kind of made that decision for me." "Maybe. But you're still doing it, still trusting me to catch you. And I want you to know I always will." I kissed him then, there on the edge of the clearing with the whole world spread out below us, and I felt completely, entirely free. Free to be myself, to love who I loved, to build the life I wanted instead of the life I thought I should have. I never thought much about loggers before Marcus. Now I can't imagine my life without one. He caught me before I hit the ground, held me like I weighed nothing, and in doing so, showed me that the strongest thing you can do is let yourself fall.